We all know that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves when he signed the Emancipation Proclamation. But that's not true. The chains didn't drop off of their wrists. The slave owners didn't say, okay, he signed the paper, we're done. No. It was people like Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington, John Brown. Those are the ones who led the slaves to freedom. But there's one name I didn't mention, one of the ones who was most spectacular of all, a fearless force for freedom. I'm referring to Harriet Tubman, an unstoppable force for freedom. Harriet Tubman was born in 1822. She was born a female. She was born a slave. Her life was fundamentally an excuse to accomplish nothing, to barely survive. But that wasn't Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman decided that there was more to life than that. Tubman wasn't her maiden name. She married John Tubman. But at the age of 27, he was a free black man. She was not. She was a slave. She'd put up with it all. But one day, she moved. At the age of 27, she'd been hit by a major weight, struck in the head. She had crippling headaches. She had fainting spells. She still escaped. She still made it to Philadelphia, where she was free. But she loved John Tubman. And she went back to try to rescue him, even though he was a free slave, a free man. He went back. Despite the brain damage, despite the fact that she was a black woman, an escaped slave, she had no safety net. She went back. And you know what she found? John Tubman had married again, 2 years after she disappeared. John Tubman didn't want to leave with her. What did she do? She accepted it. But she didn't leave alone to go back to Philadelphia. Oh, no. She took slaves with her. They rode along the Underground Railroad. Now, that's not a railroad. There was no rails. And the people who led them through that path, the conductors, through the secret way stations and whatever, she went 13 times. Not once, 13 times back to the northern states where they weren't necessarily free because of the Dred Scott decision and the Freed Slave Act. She took them all the way to Canada in many cases, but she always went back. She took 70 slaves with her. She could have quit. She'd been deserted. She was in pain. She always went back because this was more important to her than just safety and calmness. She was the first U.S. woman to ever lead an armed raid. Not the first black woman, the first U.S. woman, period. And at the Battle of Combahee, she led an army and rescued 700 people in one night. Did she quit despite her pain, despite the emotion, despite her birth situation? No. She had something more important in mind. Do you? Are you giving up? Or are you going to take things that are more important and keep going? She didn't stop at freedom. She fought for justice for everybody, for everyone, because that was her mission. That was her goal. And she did whatever she needed to do. And when the war came to an end, by the way, Did she say, I've accomplished it, we're done, finally? No. She started to fight for women's rights, women's suffrage. She continued to work for the cause of equality and freedom that were the goal of her whole life. She established an old folks' home. She adopted a child. She remarried a man 22 years her junior who worked with her. This, when I think of what America is about and what it should be about, she had every reason to stop, but she didn't. Not till the day she died. And so when you talk about heroes, think about her. And think about you. Think about your excuses, your weaknesses, your pains, and ask yourself, why would I stop when there's still good I can do? The only real limits, those are the ones that we refuse to challenge. Our only real limits are the ones we accept ourselves and give up on. So with that, I ask you to remember Harriet Tubman. Thank you.